Deep Purple's had quite a few changes. Today's lineup: John Lord, Ian Pace, Tommy Bolin, Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale.
We've been really lucky with this set of 5 people, in that it's come together in a matter of a few months, as opposed to like nearly a year for the old bands. So we're all very happy and very confident and very proud of the album we've done.
Come Taste the Band was an album that was written in LA and recorded in Munich, except for Coming Home, which was written in the studio.
It's wonderfully sung. Tommy's guitar playing is par excellence. Pacey's drumming, absolutely at the peak.
Each track signifies a Bolin vibe. More guitar on the album than organ. They were obviously written for guitar.
The best thing one can say about Come Taste the Band is that if you listen to it now, it's a surprisingly good album. It's terrifically well put together. And the worst thing you can say about it, and it's not that bad, is that in most people's opinion, it's not a Deep Purple album, but it makes a terrifically good rock album. The fact that it was made at all at that time is fairly remarkable, considering that Richie had left and that Tommy was a compromised musician. And very shortly after, sadly, not that long, he was dead. So, you know, it's important to remember that the circumstances in which it was made. Glenn was going through a hard time during Come Taste the Band. He was shortly after. Or in fact, before the end of the sessions, he'd been hospitalised. So, you know, there were difficult times, and it'd be interesting to speculate on where we might have gone with the rest of the album if Glenn hadn't been poorly. But
Come Taste the Band for me holds a special moment for me with this time around. It's a beautiful piece of music that I wrote with John Lord at 3 o'clock one morning at the piano. And Getting Tighter, the only song that I wrote with Tommy in its full length was another key moment for me. And You Keep On Moving I wrote with David in 1973 for Burn, but it wasn't appropriate for Burn. If you listen to the album and listen to track 1, Coming Home, that's not me playing the bass or singing on the backgrounds. Because because the band had not completed the backing tracks when they sent me back or asked me to go back to the UK, they were a track short. So they wrote the track Coming Home without me, and Tommy played the bass wonderfully and sang back, and I'm going, oh. If I was on that track, it wouldn't have sounded like that. It would have sounded something else. So, you know, I'm smiling because it sounds so, oh. It sounds like the Seven Dwarfs, you know. But they had to complete it, you know. They had to do what they had to do to get the album done. Lady Luck was a song that was completed in 1973 by Jeff Cook, Tommy's good buddy from Denver, and Tommy.
How's an American shaping up into what's basically, you know, an English sort of band?
It's I didn't think to be honest, at first I didn't think it would work. I really didn't, but we had a jam, and like within the first minute or two, you know, I could tell that they were into the same things I was into.
Lady Luck, actually was written originally by Jeff Cook, who I kind of grew up with, and I've been playing that for like the last 4 or 5 years, you know. I didn't know the lyrics, and I couldn't get a hold of Jeffrey, and we were in Munich, you know, so David wrote new lyrics, basically, and I remembered bits and pieces, but he kind of put it all together, and with Jeffrey's permission.
Writing with David is great, and also with Glenn. I just kind of presented, with all the tunes mostly, I just presented the music, a riff or whatever, and, you know, I would construct the tune around it, and David would take it from there and do the lyrics, or Glenn would do the lyrics, or, you know, whatever. You know, and I think they were hunting for a sort of freedom, which I don't think, like, for instance, Richie gave them, you know. So, like, they were so open to the whole thing. It turned out
lovely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Oh, Dealer, that's the great story behind Dealer. So, it's late one night, I'm in the studio with Martin Birch, we've laid down the music for Dealer, and I said, it's like David and I never really discussed who was going to sing it, but David was asleep, and I went, can I have a stab at singing that? Can I start to write some lyrics? And Martin, and we had a couple of drinks, we went down to the studio at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I sang the first part of Dealer, like the first verse and the second verse, and even the bridge with Tommy sang. So when they asked me to go home, 3-4 weeks later, when the album was mixed and mastered, I remember sitting in Ian Pacey's car in his Rolls Royce outside the Oakley House Country Club, and he played me the album from tip to toe. And when Dealer came on, I'm thinking, here it is. And then here comes David's voice. If you fool around. And it's fantastic, but I'd sung something and they wiped my vocal out. Now, I'm not saying it was as good or better than David's, but I was a little irked to think, well, I wasn't around and present for that, so... Plus, I never completed it. And David sang a great version.
We're gonna do a song for you. Getting tighter!
Getting Tired was written in my home in Beverly Hills when Tommy was living with me. We had the good fortune one night that Tommy came up with that riff, and I completed the lyric with Tommy in my house. It was the only time we ever got away from the others to write a song. In hindsight, Tommy wanted to write more songs with me for the album, but it was becoming more of a band album, which was a good thing.
It's so guitar orientated, Getting Tighter, that that I almost wanted to kind of sit back and watch it being played, you know. I love the way Tommy played that.
I love that. I love that song. That's like my favorite one. Kind of R&B, kind of funk, kind of... 6 months before I joined, I was starving.
I'm gonna do a song off the new album, a song called I Need Love. Hope you like it. Come on!
I like that track because it did it. It's just another aspect of Mark IV that wasn't in Mark III. It's just, it was a Glenn and Tommy vibe. It was more akin, it was more American than British. It was like the way it should have been in Mark IV. It was the separation of what Mark III was and Mark IV. It's a great track, I love it. I always like to sing the girly parts. You know, what would, you know, a girl sing there? I'm very much in touch with my feminine side, as you know. That is definitely a Tommy and David song. Yeah, very sort of. But I think Tommy would have probably brought that in from the James Gang kind of period. So Drifter was a classic Mark IV track.
It's a song for you called Love Child.
It's probably one of the better rock tracks on that album. I think it's probably one of the better rock tracks. David was singing great in Mark IV.
When you shake your body, you move my soul.
David, I think, finally got to sing the way he wanted to sing. Although no one ever told him not to sing any other different. David always sang what he felt. And I don't think anybody ever sort of, David, can you sing this or that? I think he sang what he wanted to feel. And you can hear that. It's an honest performance. But what Tommy's bringing to the band now is that we're not Mark III or Mark II anymore. When you replace a guitar player like Blackmore, Yngwie was too young then to be in the band, but he would have been the typical replacement for Blackmore. It would have been clownish to have Yngwie in the band, who's a wonderful guitar player. But having Tommy was a big, bold move.
I was improvising at the piano in the studio on my own. A little sequence that I'd found that pleased me, and I was just working away on it, see what I could make of it. I couldn't see how in a month of Sundays it could become a Deep Purple song, but I was messing around. And unbeknownst to me, Glenn had been listening. And I got up to leave after having been messing around for about 20 minutes on this piece. Glenn came rushing in. He used to call me Dougie, well, in a sort of West Midlands accent. Which I won't attempt to recreate, but Dougie, what's that? I said, something I'm messing around with. He said, let me have it for 5 minutes, let me have it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I can do something really brilliant with this. So we put a little version of it down on 2-track. He went away for 10 minutes, came back with the words for This Time Around, and pretty much the vocal as it was recorded.
And I think around this time, before I was sent home in September, I knew that my life was going to hell. Not as a musician, as a person. Let's just say that song was my centerpiece, as Holy Man was my centerpiece on Stormbringer. I wanted to let people know how I was as a singer and a writer, and that sums it up.
Tommy then came in and said, hey, I've got this, I'm doing accents here. He said, I got this little instrumental riff, which is the same tempo as what you guys have just done with This Time Around. And I said, well, then, why don't we, stick them together? So it did, and it worked. That's why it goes from This Time Around into Ode to G.
Ode to G was written way before Tommy joined Deep Purple. He brought it in. It was a masterclass of melody and vibe. I think John and I set out to write prelude to that with This Time Around in the same key that would Ode to G.
And it's called Ode to G. It's a pun. Ode as in O-W-E-D or O-D-E as in an ode. And to G is Gershwin because of the Tommy said it sounds a little bit like Gershwin, man, so that's how it became Ode to G.
When I look back at my life and I listen to that picture postcard from '75, August of This Time Around, I listen to the lyric from a very young man who was very troubled, and I listen to it and I'm going, obviously there's a big cry for help on this song. There's a big, big cry for help. I never wanted sympathy, and I don't want it today, but there's definitely somebody in there going, help me, for God's sake, somebody hear what I'm saying.
This is a song for you all, everybody. A song for everybody. This is a song called You Keep On Moving. Mama, baby.
You Keep On Moving was written in David's flat above a Wimpy bar in Redcar in July of '73. It was supposed to be for Byrne, but I think David and I may have played it for Blackmore, and he just went over his head. Next. So all those years later, David and I started playing. David and I just brought it into Mark IV, that Pirate Sound, and it found itself on Come Taste the Band. One of the key moments for me of Come Taste the Band is that song. I think you have to ask a lot of Glenn Hughes fans or David Coverdale fans or Tommy fans. They will signal that as one of the great songs from that period. It's a song I still play today.
Richie didn't like it. I, however, think that it's one of the few tracks on Come Taste the Band that Ian Gillan could sing beautifully. It's not his lyric style, but I like the way the song moves. I think it's a terrific song. You Keep On Moving.
When I'm actually working with somebody vocally, I need their full attention. And I also need them to, like a director of a movie, I need some direction. I need you to tell me what is working while I'm out here and you're in the control room. Martin, it was like working, it was just wonderful. He knew exactly how to direct me to sing appropriately. And projection for me is very important. And the light and shade of my voice and how I project. And it was great working with Martin because he was really the king of that. Having Kevin Shirley, my dear friend, be part of these remixes, and Kevin's really happy to be part of this, by the way. A remarkable producer and engineer. Is Svengali character for me. His remixes will speak for themselves. I don't really have to say any more than listen to this. This is the way it should have been mixed. No disrespect to the Wasp, Martin Birch. Excellent stuff.
Come Taste the Band. It's very much of the period. In fact, I think it's a bit ahead of its time. Don't forget what was happening back in England at the time was the beginnings of punk. You know, and bands like Purple, which were viewed as sort of huge, pompous rock edifices, you know, that were being sniped at by the punk, and probably quite rightly, by the punk revolution, which blew all the kind of stuff that we believed in away. It's important to remember that the circumstances in which it was made, and it's a terrific album under those circumstances. It's a terrific album under any circumstances.